Hey guys, welcome to another episode of We Don't Watch Movies, featuring me, Corinne.
And me, Monze. What's
Woo!
up? Yo.
So today, we're doing a movie that I've seen that Monze hasn't seen. Lucky for us, I watched this movie last night, so it is fresh in my brain. I already
God.
told Monze what it is.
No, I really don't.
It's a Borat.
My wife.
Whoa, whoa, wee, whoa.
My wife.
My wife. When that scene popped up, John was like, "Oh, is that from this movie?" And I was like, "Yeah."
You didn't know that?
No. It was his
Yeah,
first time seeing the movie too.
I've never seen Borat, but I know enough to know that my wife thing. So.
My wife. Yeah, so we're doing Borat, the first one, which I actually wanted to watch the second one, but John hadn't seen the first
Seen
one
the
yet,
first one,
so
yeah.
we decided to watch that one. I had seen it years ago, and when I was re-looking it up and saw it was made in 2006, knowing it's Sacha Baron Cohen, I was like, oh dear. Oh
It's,
dear.
yeah. 2006 America. What a time.
Mm-hmm.
What a time.
A true blast from the
Sometimes
past.
I even think about like 2012 America, or even like 2014 America, even like 2018 America. And then I'm like, well, 2020 America ain't looking too hot either, so why would you shut up and sit down, Monze?
Yeah. Those were times. I like to
Was a
think
time
about
indeed.
the 2013 to 2015 internet. I think about that constantly, especially 2014, 2015, like pre-2016 internet. Oh, ooh. I was on Tumblr a lot. I saw a lot. Okay.
Learned a
So,
lot.
oh. And now it's all on Twitter. Twitter is just 2012, 2016 Tumblr, and it's like, I can't do this again. Okay. So, Monze, Borat, why haven't you seen this movie?
Because my wife doesn't. Sorry. Okay, I'm done with it. I'm done.
You're not done with it.
I'm gonna say it again. When it comes up in the summary, I'm gonna just do it. Because it's stupid, and I don't like stupid movies.
Uh-huh.
That's it. That's the reason.
Yeah.
Don't sip your drink at me.
I'm thirsty. Yeah, no, I figured. There are aspects of it tonally that remind me of Napoleon Dynamite, even though the humor and like the
I hate that
content
movie.
is totally different. But like the awkward sort of like pauses and kind of like space in the movie, like just the tone of it kind of reminds me of it in a way. And so when I was watching it, I was like, oh yeah, this reminds me of Napoleon Dynamite sometimes. That's why Monze is not gonna like or watch this movie.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think what Sacha
Baron Cohen.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what's his last name? Sacha Baron Cohen does is super interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he can create this character or any other character and really make people believe him, right? Like there's an authenticity to his goofs, right? That I think is very interesting, that he can make these super powerful, like Dick Cheney or whatever, like was it torture children, right? Do waterboarding children or something like that? I don't remember exactly what it is, right? Like it's just enough authenticity to make the goof seem real, to convince people that it's real. I think that is, like, there's a lot of psychology in that, and I think that's very interesting, and I think that that's something he's really good at, right? Like, when he comes to, like, his characters or his movies. But it's just dumb. Like, the content is dumb, so I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like embarrassment. Like, I don't like necessarily making fun of people, like that kind of thing. Like, it's just, I don't enjoy it. To me, it's all just cringe, and I don't like cringe.
Yeah. Okay. It's also incredibly offensive.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure.
Which
Super
is, like,
offensive.
Like, before we watched the movie, I had to preface it with, like, John, the only thing I'm going to tell you, because he was going in blind, I was like, the main actor is actually Jewish. and that's all I'm gonna tell you. And like, because the movie starts off with and has a lot of rampant anti-Semitism. A lot of it is like intentionally put in the character himself as anti-Semitic, but like the only way they can get away with it is because Sacha Baron Cohen is literally Jewish, and he speaks Hebrew and like Yiddish throughout the entire like movie. So I had to be like, okay, just like he's actually Jewish, and then like that was kind of preface. But yeah,
how does he not know anything about this movie? Where was he living in 2004? Was he like 5 years old?
You know, you say that as exaggeration.
I know, but he probably was. That's why I did that little chuckle after I said it, because I was like, oh wait, he's actually like a baby. I keep forgetting.
Yeah, he's like...
Because I'm hella old, and he is just a wee little duckling, left his mother's nest, waddling around with his scooter, writing limericks in the street to shoot music videos. Like, what a baby.
Truly. But yeah. So, okay, so then, Monze, what do you think happens in this movie?
I think, well, based on... I haven't told you this, but one podcast I was binge listening to, because I was like, the election is in a couple of days. I'm just going to binge listen to all of these political podcasts so I can get super ramped up for it. By super ramped up, I mean just super depressed about it, but really super informed. And one of the commercials was for Borat 2, subsequent movie film.
Uh-huh.
So every time they would do the trailer or the commercial, whatever it was for it, I'd be like, this movie is so stupid. But I was listening it to so many times, so much, that I was like, should I watch this movie? I think I need to watch this movie. But in my heart of hearts, I knew I didn't want to watch the movie. It was just good marketing, because I was brainwashing myself by listening to this one podcast, and I'm only having 2 freaking commercials. But based off that trailer, he's from Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
He's a journalist, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he goes to America to like report on them or something. And he gets into all this wild shenanigans. And that's about it. That's all I know. Also something about his wife.
My wife.
My wife.
My wife.
My wife.
That's a pretty good general, like if someone had to write like a Netflix summary for Borat.
Yeah, Netflix, I'm not hiring.
Netflix,
I'm hiring you.
Call me, Netflix. Send me a resume.
Send me a resume.
I'm hiring you to let me write summaries for your movies.
Precisely.
Except you pay me.
Except you pay me.
I'm hiring you to pay me.
I'm a pimp and you're my prostitute.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, that's a pretty safe summary of like what happens. You're certainly not wrong, but there's a little more to it. Okay, so let's find the trailer of the first Borat movie, since clearly you've seen the trailer for the second one a zillion times.
I've heard the trailer to the second one a trillion times.
Yes.
I know, I'm pretty sure in the second one, he goes back to America, but everyone in his country is less enthused about it. And then I think he also brings his daughter, and I think he's trying to put his daughter in like to American society or something. Once you watch it, you can just tell me how close I am.
Okay.
And then, and of course, it does not turn out the way he thinks it will. But again, I think he's also reporting like to see how America has changed, or America-Kazakhstan relations, or something dumb like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I put the trailer in the chat.
I see it.
Alright, let me know once you have it open so we can play it at the same time.
It's open.
Okay, ready?
Hold on. Okay.
Go.
Kazakhstan Ministry. Hi, Borat. Okay. USNA. Why is he chasing him? Oh, why do you have a chicken in your... I'm not used to that, but that's fine. We support your war on terror. Oh my... What? That horse? Oh my god. Oh yeah, I forgot he wears that thing. Is he taking a picture of that guy? What's up, vanilla face? Wow. Is that where he says my wife?
He says my wife in another. So that's the trailer. Do you want to amend any
What are
of
the comments? The greatest thing about this film is that it looks like it was produced in the 1960s. Who is here after hearing that Borat 2 is in the works? Fun fact, the FBI has assigned a team to follow Sacha Baron Cohen because there were reports of a Middle Eastern man driving an ice cream truck. So many people don't get that 2 TUE film is making fun of America and not Kazakhstan. I died when he said, "Wait, I want to say hello." This is probably the trailer to the most legendary movie of all time.
Ooh.
Plot twist, the parts with Kazakhstan is filmed in Romania. Borat is the biggest uranium supplier. What's up, vanilla face? Laughing emoji.
Just reading the comments?
Yes.
Okay.
And just like that, he drank water from toilet. Oh my goodness.
You good?
There's a lot of, hey, who's here because of Borat too? Oh my goodness. Oh my god, someone said it amazes me that I haven't heard anything about Kazakhstan being offended by this. Or maybe I missed it.
Funny story. They missed
Kazakhstan
it.
isn't a real country, isn't it?
Kazakhstan is a real country, Monze.
What was I thinking of?
I don't know, but Kazakhstan is definitely a real country.
I was thinking of a different country in a different movie where there's a fake Middle Eastern country, but I can't think of the movie. I was like, Kazakhstan is definitely real, but I know there's a movie where there is a fake Middle Eastern country. Besides the movie Aladdin, because Agrabah also isn't real.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, yeah, what's going on?
Okay, so do you want to amend any of what you think happens?
Okay.
Or should I go to the...
So he goes to America to report on America to Kazakhstan. And he doesn't know anything about America. So he's a hot mess.
Yeah.
I think that's just adding to what I originally said.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Alright, so some context behind this movie. You already kind of touched on it, but Sacha Baron Cohen, as a comedian, is like he has like these characters. He's famous. He's like a British comedian.
Yeah, he's British.
He's British. And he has like all these different characters. He's famous for like the Ali G show, and Borat is a character that existed in that show. So when they were making the movie, they realized they couldn't make this movie in Britain because too many people would recognize him because he was too popular. So they decided to make it in the U.S. where people haven't really heard of Borat, don't really know about Borat because, I mean, our entertainment culture is so isolated, especially back in 2006 and prior to that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Anything, like, from other shows. Anything from other countries is like, what? I mean, now we have, like... Because even, like, anime was like, you're a weeb, and now, like, everyone watches anime, and, like, Netflix produces their own anime. White people are making anime now.
I know. I'm like, now there's questions of, like, what is anime, which is, like, oh, that's a whole thing. But yeah, so this was around, this was released in 2006, so I'm inclined to believe that it was filmed prior to 2006, but certainly after, you know, the whole, World Trade Center thing and all that. So it's definitely mockumentary
I can't believe I was 15.
When this came out?
Yeah.
I was 13.
God, you're such a freaking baby.
I know, you're so old.
Just a little duckling leaving the nest, shooting music videos with the bikes.
Alright, so yeah, so this film only has five actual, really only 4 actual actors who are like in on it, and then one porn star who I assume had given some permission to use his photos. Um, but everyone else in the film doesn't know that the film is really happening.
Yeah.
So there's Sacha Baron Cohen, obviously, as Borat. Then there's his friend Ken Devishin, I think, who plays his producer, which is another character from the Ali G show. So he's like reprising his role as Amat Bagatov. So it starts off, we're filming in quote unquote Kazakhstan, but actually Romania. And it's kind of
Thanks,
like.
YouTube comments.
Thank you, YouTube comment.
Fun fact. No, plot twist.
And they're kind of shooting like B-roll around the village and like showing like what it's like, and people are kind of reacting as if like, you know, like kind of home video sort of mockumentary style. And we get introduced to Borat, and he's just like talking in his little awkward way about like his town and who he is, and like you said, he's like a journalist. It opens one of the early scenes, he's at like, there's like a running of the bulls parody, but then what they're being chased by are these gross caricatures of Jewish people. um so it's like the most like obviously terrible caricatures of them. The Jewish woman caricature lays an egg in the middle, and like the children who are watching the running of the, I guess, the bulls or whatever, they come out and start kicking the egg. So it kind of shows like this is what they think Jewish people are. They have this skewed image of that. So it's like, oh, right away, right off the bat, we're being hit with that. And there's also like, he introduces people around his town. He says like one of his neighbors is like the town rapist. He has like a thing against his next door neighbor because every time Borat gets like a window made of glass, his neighbor has to get a window made of glass. When he wants to get this, his neighbor gets the same thing. Then we go into his house. He like makes out with this woman in front of his house, and he says like, this is my sister, she's like the fourth highest ranked prostitute in the town, and she has like a little trophy. And I assume she's not like an actress. She must be like just some random Romanian woman that just agreed to be filmed like that. And so is everybody else in this town are also just random Romanian people who just agreed to be filmed. He goes in, and like there's like a cow in his house, and he's showing the house, and his wife,
It's my
Oksana,
wife.
yeah, she's like a big lady who's always angry at him. And then like his mother is there as well. So he's just kind of like, you know, kind of poor sort of living situation. He's like, oh, the Kazakhstan government is sending me to the US and A to like film a documentary and learn more about American customs and like you know, spread more about Kazakhstan over to there. So it's kind of like a cultural exchange sort of thing, except he's just the only one going over there. So yeah, the government is sending him over for that. And we see some other bits like him and the Mankini walking around, and like he talks about like his different hobbies. Like there's like a scene where he's like, I like ping pong, and he spends like 10 minutes like trying to get the ball like to finally hit it, and then when he does hit it, the guy doesn't even hit it back. So like they're just terrible at ping pong. And he says like sunbathing, and that's when he walks around with that. And then he says he likes disco dancing, and it's them just like folk dancing in the middle of like the town. So he leaves in like a car, but the car doesn't actually like drive, it's pulled by horses, which was a element in my D&D campaign, where there was a van that didn't run because the people didn't have like, they don't know how technology works, because the van just popped in from a portal, and it said the van was being pulled by a horse. So when I saw that on the movie, I was like, oh.
This is where I stole it from.
My subconscious. Her mind. But so yeah, so they're like being pulled by a horse in this car over to the airport, and they like, then we get like the credits, and they're flying over. They go to New York City. So he goes to New York City, and like it's custom, like his custom is that he kisses like them on the cheek, and he does that as soon as he introduces himself. So he like tries to get onto the subway, and he's like trying to introduce himself to everybody just sitting in the subway, and these are like real people, and you can tell from the camera quality they're like secretly like hidden camera sort of. He's like on there with his suitcase, and he's like, hello, my name is Borat, I'm new to the country, and he tries to like kiss the person, and they're like, whoa, get off of me, and like everyone has these adverse reactions because he's only really doing it to the men. And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh my god, what are you doing? Like, are you gay or whatever? And then at one point the bag like pops open and the chicken comes out, and so now there's a chicken on this train, and I'm just wondering, like, I wonder what it must have been like to have just
To be
been
the chicken?
there,
To
not
be the chicken?
to be the chicken,
Because
or
that's
like,
what I was thinking. You're just like, wonder what it'd be like to be on the train with Borat and the
yeah.
chicken. Meanwhile, I'm like, what is it like to be stuck in that suitcase?
I'm hoping that like they did the chicken bit very early
Yeah.
on, and that they just filmed like in the other scenes they just didn't have the chicken in the bag. And there are some things I noticed later in the movie when they had the chicken gag that it would cut pretty close to like after the chicken was put in the bag. So I'm like, okay, they must have like something in there so not to hurt the chicken. But like, just imagine being on your commute and then you don't know a movie's being filmed, and then suddenly like there's a chicken. And then you see your face in a movie 2 years later. Like, oh, like you're watching the marketing for Borat, you're like, that guy looks familiar. I wonder why. And then you see the chicken scene and you're just transported to that day. Like, oh, so he's like riding the subway. He goes to a hotel and they check him into the room. But when he goes into the elevator, he thinks the elevator is his room. So he starts like unpacking in the elevator. And the doorman is like, no, this isn't your room yet. This isn't your room. And they go to the room. And this audio has been going very popular on TikTok. And it's Borat seeing the room. And he's like, wow, wow, wee, wow. I have a chair. King of the castle. King of the castle. And he's just like really impressed by this hotel room. Um, and that's where like the toilet bowl scene is, where he's like drinking
Yep.
out of it, and he's like, wow, this room is so nice, and he's just like sitting in the chair like, I have a chair, ooh, look at me. And then the next day is just like shenanigans in New York. He like, that's he keeps introducing himself to people and trying to kiss them on the cheeks, and then that's like that one guy like starts running away from him, and he's like, get away from me, stay away from me, and Borat just starts chasing him.
Oh my god.
Oh, that guy filed a lawsuit after the movie.
Yeah, I would have too.
So many lawsuits. And then he's he's like kind of harassing women a little, like, how much are you or whatever, because that's his view of women. Um, and then he visits someone who is trying to explain like jokes to him. So he's like, this is like this is what we find humorous or whatever. And he's like framing it as like an actual like interview. And Borat is just clearly like not getting it. And he like asks him about something one would joke about. And then Borat mentions like his mentally handicapped brother using the R word because it wasn't like totally not PC back then. Although the guy there, like, no one used it except for Borat, really.
Mm.
Probably because they must have known they were on camera. So they were like, hold on. And so he was trying to like make a joke about that, and the guy was like, well, that joke's not gonna land in the U.S. So then Borat goes on and tells a story about like sexual assault that happened, and then the guy kind of like half laughs while the story is being told, but then he's also like, yeah, no, I don't think that's appropriate either. And then this guy is trying to explain like a not joke. Like you would say something and then follow it up with not, and then I was like, oh right, that was a line of humor for a while. Like, I'm so sad, not, or whatever. So he's trying to explain it to Borat using the color of his suit. And he's like, well, what color's your suit? And Borat's like, well, it's gray. And the guy's like, oh, I think it's blue. And Borat's like, no, it's gray. So they're like going back and forth on the color. He's like, okay, fine. And then he goes, oh, your suit is black. Not. And Borat's like, but my suit is gray. So there's like this whole thing here. And then Borat's trying to learn how to do the joke. But first he says, like, my suit is not gray. And the guy's like, no, you have to say the not after. So he says, okay, my suit is gray, not. He's like, no. And then the next he like pauses for like way too long and then just cuts at that point. So then what are they doing? They're just like walking around the city just doing stuff with like the producer, and occasionally he and the producer start like, they'll like talk to each other, but there aren't any like real subtitles. And what's actually happening is like Sacha Baron Cohen is speaking in Hebrew with like an exaggerated accent, and then his friend, the producer, is speaking in Armenian, so they're just like speaking to each other like that. And at one point, Borat is in his room and he's flipping through the channels. Oh, because he doesn't know how to use the TV because he'd just been watching like the breakfast menu on the TV, and the guy comes
Okay.
over to like help him out. So now he knows how to like scroll through it. and he happens upon Baywatch,
Of course.
and he sees Pamela Anderson,
Of course.
and he falls in love with her.
Of course.
So he's like, oh my god, Pamela Anderson, she's so beautiful, I'm in love with this woman, yada yada. And he's like, how do I find this woman, whatever. And the next day he goes to like this feminist group, so that's when he says like, oh, like, why do you think women should have equal rights when their brains are so tiny and they're the size of like a golf ball or whatever, and the women are clearly like not having it. And then he starts asking them about, like, I saw this woman on TV, her name is CJ, she lives in a town, and he was like, do you know her? They're like, no. And he's like, she lives in a town called Baywatch, and they're like, oh, he's talking about Baywatch, that's Pamela Anderson, she lives in California. And he's like, oh, okay. And then they eventually like leave, and then he is trying to figure out like where California is and whether he can see her, but he's kind of despondent because he already has a wife. But then he gets news, a telegram to the hotel, that the hotel guy raised to him that his wife was killed by a bear. So he's like, okay, and he's happy about it because he's like, okay, great, I can go pursue Pamela Anderson now because my wife is dead. He like high fives the guy, because at first the guy's like, I'm so sorry, your wife is dead. And he's like, okay, great, very nice, and like high fives him, and the guy's like, oh, okay. And so he convinces his producer to go to California just to film more of America. So the producer's like, okay, fine. So they have to buy a car now, and they go looking for a car, and that's where he's like, how many like people would this car kill if I was hitting them? And the guy is like, well, it would depend like how hard you hit them. And he also asked the guy who's like, oh, I was told that I need like I need a car that would attract a lot of people. Oh, before this, he takes driving lessons, and that's where like the guy, he's like, oh, that's never happened to me before. But okay, this poor guy, this driving instructor has like the patience of an angel, because you can tell he wants to. You can tell he has a short fuse and he wants to get mad, but he's like, I'm being professional. Like the professionalism veneer is like so strongly there, but you can still see like his frustration on him. And he's like, have you driven a car before? And Borat's like, yes. And the guy realizes, no, Borat has never driven a car before. And he's like trying to explain to him how to do it. And they're having like these different conversations back and forth. And the guy's patience is clearly being tested the entire time. So then when he gets to the car dealership, he's like, my driving instructor told, oh, at one point at the end of it, Borat's like, oh, I really like you. Can you be my friend? Can you be my boyfriend? And the guy at first says like, no, no, no. But then later he's like, oh, I guess. Yeah, I guess I could be your boyfriend. And I was like, oh, I wonder what this is. But then, he goes to the car dealership, and he's like, my driving instructor told me that I need to like get like a pussy magnet. So when they get into like, because he's like, what kind of car can I get that will definitely win me like a woman? And the guy's like, well, either a Corvette or a Hummer. So they go for the Hummer.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Hummer.
Like immediately he's like, Corvette or a Hummer. So he's like taking him, and they go into the Hummer, and they go inside the car after the whole conversation of like killing people, and the guy is just matter of fact being like, you only need to hit them at 35 miles an hour. And I'm like, this guy is really humoring him about like how hard, if I ran this car into a group of people, would they die, would the car be damaged, yada yada. And I'm like, okay. They get into the car, and then Borat starts asking about a pussy magnet because he thinks it's an actual magnet that will attract women. And he's like, where do you install it? How can I ask you to install? The guy's like, oh no, there's no pussy magnet. He's like, well, if I pay you, will you put one in? And he's like, no, the car is the pussy magnet. Like the car is the one. There's no actual magnet like that. So then Borat asks how much it is, and he's like, oh, it's like $52,000. And Borat's like, I want something that's like $600 to $700. And the guy's like, well, you definitely can't afford a Hummer, but I have a car that's used with a lot of miles on it that I can just give you, and it's an ice cream truck.
Oh my god.
So they're driving this ice cream truck across the country. They stop by DC, and there's like a pride parade going on. And Borat goes out because he's like, oh, there's like a folk parade or whatever going on in the U.S. And he's like, when he kisses them on the cheeks, they're fine with it. So he's like, oh, they're so friendly, they're so nice to me, they're dancing with me. They came home with me, and we had so much fun. And then he's talking to like this politician. about it, and he was like, oh yeah, that's like the gay pride parade, and he was like, what is gay? And he says, oh, like homosexual. So then Borat's like, so you mean to tell me that the man who put a rubber fist up my asshole was a homosexual? And he was like, yes. And Borat
Oh
just like
my god.
has this moment, which again, I was like, do these guys like, are they in on it? Do they like know? Like, I'm confused because it shows them going into like the bathroom, and one of the guys has like the dildo. So I'm like, what happens here? At what point does Sacha Baron Cohen be like, okay, cut, it's a bit, you know? And then he was talking to another politician, but I forget what about. His name was Bob Barr, but I forgot what he was talking to about. Let me see. Oh yeah, they chose not to fly because in case of the Jews repeat their attack of 9/11, according to them. Um Let me see. I don't remember what he says to Bob Barr. But then Borat appears in like he's in like a local TV station, but he has to like pee. So he's like visibly uncomfortable like the entire time that he's being interviewed because he has to like use the bathroom. He didn't realize that they were live already. And then when they finish the interview, he like interrupts the weather report just by saying like hello, how are you, or whatever. And I'm like, was this like live? Did this like happen? It appears so. He like actually was on like a local news station. So then he's driving down, and then he goes through one of the southern states, and there's like that rodeo, and this guy is like just straight up racist. Like he tells Borat at one point, like you will make people uncomfortable because you look Middle Eastern, and we just had like 9/11 happen. If you shaved your mustache, then you would just look Italian, and no one would worry about it. But because you look the way you look, then people are going to be on edge when they see you because they're going to think you're a terrorist. And he just like straight up tells him this. And then Borat comes out and he sings like he starts like yamping up, like ramping up the audience, being like, we support your war of terror, we support like this. And he like, I could see the wheels kind of turning in Sasha's brain about like, I'm going to just keep saying the most ridiculous things I can to see if they still keep cheering for it. And he does, and they do.
Yeah, because like, why people be stupid?
I know. Like he like at one point like says like, may all the people over there like be killed, basically, like may you guys kill everybody over there in the Middle East, and they're still cheering. It's like, may George Bush, yeah, and he's like, may George Bush drink the blood of all of the people over there. Literally. There was like, they had like footage of like a couple people that were like, this is too much, I'm not gonna cheer for this, but like you could still hear some cheering going on. And then Borat starts singing the national anthem, but he sings his national anthem to the tune of the American national anthem. So that's where like, this was one of the first things that I knew about Borat. Everyone was singing the Kazakhstan Potassium song in my high school. So he's just singing like, Kazakhstan's the best country, everyone else sucks, and we are the greatest exporter of potassium, no one else has potassium like us. Which always confused me because I was like, they have bananas in Kazakhstan? But anyway.
No. Actual potassium mineral. It's a mineral?
So they like are booing him really loudly, and then the horse falls over. And then they keep driving. They end up in, I think, like Atlanta at some point, and it's like late at night, and they're lost. So Borat comes up to these black kids who are like just hanging around outside, and he asks them for directions. They're like, where are you trying to go? And he's like, I'm trying to go to California. And they're like, oh, you're a long way from home. And at one point they're like, who are you with? Like, who are you with? And then he's like, oh, I'm from Kazakhstan, whatever. And they're like, okay, like, whatever. And he starts asking, like, I like you guys, how can I dress like you? So they explain, like, you just gotta sag the pants a little. And they're like, don't pull your pants all the way down, though, but just sag them, like, a little bit. And they, like, he's like, how do I say, how are you? I want to talk like you. I like how you talk. And they tell him, like the slang that they use. They give him some Ebonics. And then, like, he tries to check into a hotel, and he checks into the hotel with the pants sagged down.
Yeah, the piece in the trailer.
And he's like, how with it or whatever. He's like, what's with it, Vanilla Face? Can I need a place like a crib for like my friend and I? He's just like starts talking like in that way.
Yeah.
The minute he says what's with it, Vanilla Face, the guy like side skirts to go like get security, and they won't let him rent a room there. Like they
Wow.
refuse to let him rent a room there. They're like, we don't want you. We're gonna call the police if you don't leave. So I'm like, ooh. So they keep going. I think they find like a bed and breakfast, like a B&B. Um and they go in, they like the house, but then it's like owned by an older Jewish couple, and like the
Oh my
lady is like
god.
showing off these like paintings, and the guy's like,
Oh,
"Who
I'm
is
so
this?"
tired.
And she says it's like a rabbi, and they realize that they're Jewish, and they come up with like food, but Borat and his producer are too scared to eat it because they think it's poisoned, and like the music gets really tense, but the interaction is like so not tense because it's just this nice older couple that's like, oh, we brought food, like eat it, but then the music is whatever, and they like don't sleep at night, and for some then later they're trying to escape, so they think the Jewish couple, because they think Jewish people can shapeshift, they see these two roaches in the house, like these wharf roaches, like these little beetles,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they think the couple shapeshifted into them, so they throw money at them, and then they run out of the house yelling and get into the ice cream truck and leave. At some point they procure a bear. I think it was right after this, because they want to buy a gun, and they're like, I want a gun to defend me. Like, he goes to the store and he says, what kind of gun will defend me against a Jewish person? And the guy goes, that would be a .45 caliber. Like, these
Of
people just,
course.
without batting an eye, just
Yeah, I'm
answer him.
sure. Because all those people are just as racist and terrible.
Yeah. And then, like, as a small disclaimer, I think they let the couple know, like, they let them know, like, we want to film something in here. Is that okay? They just didn't know what. So when the couple ended up being pretty good humored about it, and they liked the movie, and they thought, like, it was, like, they liked the movie overall. So it's like, oh, okay, they're being good sports about it, I guess. They were like, we think the movie's more anti-Muslim than anti-Semitism, if anything. But, so the couple was, like, at least gave permission, I guess. And so Borat's trying to buy a gun, and the guy just like shows him the gun or whatever, but he can't buy it because he's not American. So then he's like trying to get an animal, and then I forgot this happened in the movie, but I've seen this screenshot where it's like a tortoise, and then it like pulls out, and Borat's like, "What kind of dog is this?" And I've seen that image before of like a man with like two other people on this tortoise. It's like, what kind of dog is this? And they're like, it's a tortoise. He's like, it's a cat. And they're like, no, it's a tortoise. So then he's like, I need like an animal that will protect me. So they get a bear. So they have like a bear in the ice cream truck that they name after his dead ex-wife. Um,
My wife.
my wife. And they're like playing around with the bear and all that, and you get some like nice bear footage. I'm like, I know those bears are in on it because they must be actors. And
I'm glad you realized that the Bears were in on it.
the bears have to be in on it.
Yeah, because you don't want to interact with a real bear because he will
No.
die.
Yeah. There was like a cute bit where they're swimming in like a swimming pool, and Borat's like swimming behind the bear, and then like the next bit the bear's swimming after Borat. Um so, and then like they have like the ice cream truck jingle go off at one point, so the kids like run over to the truck because they think it's got ice cream, but then the bear just yells at them, and then they run away.
Oh
And then they make a stop in Birmingham, Alabama.
no. Oh God, no.
Oh yeah. So they have like an etiquette dinner lesson. So it's like, it's a bunch of white people, obviously, and
Big
they're very
surprise.
like daughters of the Confederacy, daughters of the American Revolution sort of people.
Jeez,
You know, they
God.
just have that look. So like first
Yeah,
this
of
woman's
course.
explaining like the etiquette, and he's asking about dinner etiquette, and he's asking about like, what if I need to use the restroom? Do I have to say that, like, what I'm interested in people? How do I like have conversation, and can I have a guest? And she's explaining all this stuff, and he actually goes to the dinner, and it's like a few of them, and he does like the kiss thing with only the men, and then like they have the dinner, and he like asks about like how do I say go to like the restroom, and then they're like, oh, just say you go upstairs. So he goes upstairs. He comes, and like when he leaves upstairs after all his other like faux pas or whatever, they film the people talking about him. And that's when the lady's like, I think, he's like a nice young man. I think he just needs a little bit of work and he'll like mesh into America just fine. They're like being relatively complimentary and like doing that white people thing of like the cultural differences are vast but so interesting, yada
Oh
yada,
my god, yeah, of course.
uh he comes down with like a little bag and he's like, where do I put this? So you kind of assume he like pooped in a bag and he's like, where do I throw this out? And they realize that they're like, oh my god. So the lady goes to show him how to use the toilet and she's like, you take out like the toilet paper, you wipe it, you flush it, like that's what you do. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he comes back down, and then he's like, oh, I invited a guest. Let me go get my guest. And his guest, who is one of the other actresses who is in on the movie, is
Mm-hmm.
Lunel. And Lunel is playing, she's like a comedian, and she's playing a prostitute. So she comes in, and she's like clearly not dressed like for the occasion. Like she's wearing like some fun clothes. And she comes in, the minute she comes in and Borat brings her and he's like, here's my friend, here's my guest, they all instantly say, I have to go. It's getting late. It's getting late. I have to go. And I was like, oh my god, because Lunella is black. So all the white people are like, it's getting so late. I have to leave. I have to go. Like, immediately. And then Borat starts asking, he's like, can't Lunel stay for dessert? Like, can't we stay for dessert? And the lady goes like, no, and you can't either. You need to get out. So they like basically like throw them out of the house. And Borat's like, I'm so sorry that they treated you like this. And she was like, it's okay, like let's go have some fun tonight. So they go out to like a bar and they like have fun and they like ride the mechanical bull together and they have like all this fun stuff. And he like walks her to her house and you can tell that like they like each other, but he's like, but I'm in love with another woman. I have to go find Pamela
Pamela
Anderson.
Anderson, good luck.
and she's like
Borat.
and she's like, okay, well, if you're ever in town, like give me a call. And he's like, okay, I will. So then he's like nice to her and it's kind of like this sweet moment and then like they leave but he's like, I have to go find Pamela Anderson. So they're like going along and then at one point, I think after this, he finds out oh, he goes to an antique shop. Oh, I thought this was it. The antique shop has a bunch of like Confederate heritage items and he breaks all of them by falling. And they
Conveniently falling on
yeah,
them.
by falling. I think we must have missed the context of it because it seemed like he just went into an antique store and just totally wrecked everything. But the wiki page says it was all Confederate heritage items, so that makes more sense why he chose to just destroy everything. So, and then they like charged him for it and they just like barely had any cash. They're like, just get out of here, just leave. And it was like this old white couple. So he breaks like 400, 4,000, like a lot of stuff, like a lot of their shit. Um, and then let me see. Okay, so the next part is they're at like this hotel, and Borat comes in, and he has like a magazine of Baywatch, and that he like looks at every now and then to look at Pamela Anderson, and he sees his producer friend masturbating to the magazine. So then
Mm.
Borat gets really angry, and like he just got out of the shower, and so he's naked, and then his friend is also naked. So they start like fighting, and they're both naked, but the fight ends up looking like gay sex. So they're like on top of each other, like yanking on each other's penises and like biting each other, and they're like in a pose that looks like 69ing, and like it looks like gay sex. And like Sasha Baron Cohen has like this big black bar that like censors, his thing. And at one point they leave the room. So they're running around the hotel butt ass naked.
Oh my
They
god.
interrupt a conference room meeting
Oh
and
my
they end up on
god.
stage and
I'm
they're
gonna
like
burn this movie.
they're like rolling around naked over there. And at one point they run into the elevator and they don't realize there are people there, so they're just naked in this elevator and they're just like quiet. So they're just like really quiet until the elevator like pops open, then they run out yelling at each other. So they get like arrested. And then the next day, because they had been fighting, because like his producer's mad because he found out the reason Borat wants to go to California is to pursue Pamela Anderson. That has nothing to do with
Uh-huh.
the documentary. So the next day, Borat's alone in the ice cream truck and he talks about how like, oh, Azamat took all our stuff. He took the bear. He took everything. He took all the money. The only thing he left me with, he took my passport, so I can't even go home. The only thing he left me with is this magazine with Pamela Anderson and my ticket, but I can't even use the ticket because I don't even have my passport. So Borat's all alone. So he's driving, and then the car breaks down, so he starts walking, and he hitchhikes. Um, and he hitchhikes on this RV with a bunch of USC, not California, South Carolina students. And there are a bunch of like frat boyish white guys who are about as bad as you could imagine. They're like the worst. So they're like super misogynistic. At first, they're kind of like partying with Borat or whatever, but they're not even like pronouncing his name right, which is like another thing consistent in the film. Like almost nobody pronounces his name right. And so another reason Borat likes Lunel is because Lunel pronounces his name correctly, and he like says that to her. He's like, "You say my name correctly, like you pronounce it correctly." But these kids, they literally call him like Boris, and it's like okay.
Oh my
And
god.
they have like this weird, I don't know, it's weird. And like the guys are super extremely misogynistic and also extremely racist. They're just awful. Like they're exactly what you would expect of a white entitled racist college age frat boy. Like the epitome of it. Like I remember watching it being like, are they acting or are they actually like this? But
That's
no,
what
they're
they're
actually
like.
like it.
Yeah, they're like that.
They're like that. And at one point he tells them that like he wants to, they like say a bunch of stuff. There was something that they said that I remember being like, "Oh my god." But I don't remember exactly what it was. But he he tells them about Pamela Anderson, and he says that he's gonna like take her virginity, and they say like, "Oh no, she like has a sex tape. She's not a virgin." So they play the sex tape, and he like has this whole crisis, and the guys are like comforting him, but then when he wants to leave, they tell him like, don't ever let a woman like make you who you are. Like women, like you're better than a woman, you're stronger than a woman, women are not nowhere as good at, like they're just saying all this horrible misogynistic stuff to like cheer him up, and it's like, oh my god, gross. So he leaves and he's walking along, he comes across a super church. The
Oh
super
my
church,
god.
yeah, it's about, this movie is really just like, it just highlights the worst things about everything. Oh, before he goes into the super church, he like sleeps outside like with a blanket, and he burns like the Baywatch book, and he accidentally burns his return ticket as well. So
Of
he
course.
goes to the United Pentecostal Camp Meeting, the world's largest apostolic Pentecostal Christian church. Um, so one of the apparently Republican U.S. Representative Chip Pickering and Mississippi Supreme Court Chief Justice James W. Smith Jr. are present. I didn't recognize them, but apparently they were there. So he goes to this Pentecostal church, which is like, it's like those Jesus camp sort of churches.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's the ones where they speak in tongues, and it's like all white people, and they're just shouting, and they run around, and they'll do the thing where they'll like get someone up to like pray for them, and the person like has this whole like thing going on, and it's scary, quite frankly. And anyway, so he goes there, and he like explains how like he's been in a lot of trouble, and this woman that he loved like did some terrible thing on a boat that he doesn't know if he can forgive her. So they like pray for him, and he like plays along with it. And he's like, "So my friend Mr. Jesus will help me?" And they're like, "Yeah, Jesus loves you, Jesus will help you, yada yada." So he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go with the help of my friend Jesus to California." So he has new resolved. So he goes to Los Angeles, and I'm like, "Hey, I recognize where he's at." He's on like Hollywood, you know,
yeah.
and he runs into Azamat, who is dressed as Oliver Hardy. I thought it was Charlie Chaplin. Apparently Borat mistakes him for Hitler, and then the two like they reconcile, and then Azamat tells Borat where he could find Pamela Anderson. Now Pamela Anderson is one of the other actresses who is in on the movie, although she's very convincing in not being in on the movie. So she's having like a signing event going on. So he goes to this store, which John pointed out the mall said like Virgin Mall on it or something, which was ironic. And So Borat like waits in line and he has like this nice sack and like this poster and he like gets there finally. He's like, "Oh, I love you. I'm so like I'm so honored to see you. Like I came all this way. Like I love you." And he says like, "Will you marry me?" And she's like, "No, thank you." And he goes, "Okay, well, I'm going to take you." So he like has this marriage sack and he like puts it like over her and he tries to kidnap her. So she's like screaming like, "Oh my god, help me." And like the security guards come and they like pull him off and she like runs away from him and he chases her around the store and he chases her out into the parking lot and like tries to grab her and then the security guards like body him and detain him. So Pamela Anderson knew this was gonna happen. So she was like just hamming it up. But the security guards did
Of
not know it
course
was gonna
not.
happen. The bodyguards didn't know it was gonna happen. So they were like taking their job seriously. But she did a pretty good job in being convincing about it. So Borat is a
She
little.
is an actress.
She is an actress, yes. Um. So Borat, finally he's like, okay, fine. Like I guess this just isn't it. Like I'm just not gonna have her. And they're going to go back, but he like learns like he decides that maybe the true love is actually like he had seen it before. So he goes back to Atlanta or no, Alabama, and he sees Lunel again and he's like, "Hi," and they like reconcile and then eventually they get married and she comes with him back to Kazakhstan and we see him there like a little while later with this new outfit. He explains like the different things that they have now and like one guy who didn't have an arm, I guess, now has like the rubber dildo as his arm, and Lunel is there with him, and people are bringing flowers to like. She's like pumping breast milk for some reason. I don't know. I was like, I don't know what's going on here. But they have like these new improvements based on like what he learned in America. And then that's kind of like how the film ends. And he's like, "Thanks for watching." Like, oh yeah, they have like iPods and like computers and TV now. And they've like sort of converted to Christianity, so they don't do the running of the bulls Jewish thing anymore. Instead, they have like a crucifixion because Jesus was a Jew, so that's what they have now instead. But yeah, so that's kind of like how it ends. He's like, now look how our village has improved after I went to America, and now I'm happily married, and that's the end of the movie. So that's the movie.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's like one part, it's like, oh my god, like Sacha Baron Cohen is insane and he's saying this like wildly offensive stuff at one point. At what point do I stop it from like this is the character saying it and he's just staying in character versus like you're just crossing a line, like even if it is in character, right? So one part is like that dilemma, but then the other part is like these Americans are awful.
Well, I mean, I think if Trump has shown us, right, if
Yeah.
someone is willing to say it, right, then and it's what you've been thinking or like, then yeah, you're gonna just not to you it's just normal,
Yeah.
it's just like whatever.
It's like you could be like, well, he said it first. I'm just going along with it, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just like actually saying it with your chest, which is in a way cowardly. Like on one hand, if people are going to be offensive, I would rather they not. But on the other hand, if they're really going to be offensive, then like I guess like I don't know if I would rather they just come out and just be offensive instead of waiting for someone to make it acceptable because I don't want to hear the offensive things. But there is a bit of like they know it's wrong. If they didn't think it was wrong, they wouldn't have any issues just saying it, So
But they wouldn't get defensive about it. Like
yeah. But yeah, so what are your thoughts?
I feel like I lost all my brain cells listening to this movie. I'm so tired. I was so tired coming home from work, and then I was like, can't wait to talk to Corinne. Can't wait to record an episode. And I'm just like so tired. Like I just want to kill myself, throw myself out a window. I just want to end it. It's
No, Monze.
why would? It's exactly why I didn't watch this movie because, like I said, it's super dumb.
Yeah.
Why do you keep choosing really dumb movies? You know I hate dumb movies.
Because I know you haven't seen them. And I have a higher tolerance for these dumb movies apparently. It's like what you said earlier, like his type of comedy is interesting because it reveals a lot about
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so I find that part interesting. But watching this movie, like even rewatching it, like I think the first time I watched it, I was like, "Oh, like I found it much funnier." But then now that I'm watching it, I'm like, "Oh boy."
Oh.
A lot of it is like a lot of it's like, "Oh boy." Like I don't know how funny I found it when I first watched it, but I know like the first watch it was like, "Oh my god, that's crazy. Oh my god, like I can't believe they said that." And this time it's like, uh
Yeah.
it seems like a movie where like bits and pieces of it isolated are like really funny, but
Mm-hmm.
then because the character I think was like a skit character, so
Yeah.
small bits and pieces with that character is funny because it's just like you pepper it in every now and then, but like a whole movie it's like, oh dear. But I'm curious what the second Borat movie is going to be because it's going to be so much worse. Like I feel like as difficult as it is to imagine, I think it's gonna be so much worse. Like Rudy Giuliani's in the movie,
Yeah.
and he says
Doesn't
some.
he?
He like I read. I feel like the behind the scenes of the movie is almost more interesting than like the movie itself. I read that one of the actresses, when she went to go like talk to Rudy Giuliani, she like went by herself, and he like put his hands in his pants when he was alone with her,
Yeah, I heard about that.
which is like whoa. And then like that was like a whole like thing, um which like yikes. And I think after that I don't think they let her be alone with him like again, and they like kind of called him out on it, but he like denied that it happened or tried to blame her for it or whatever. So I know there was like a thing with Rudy Giuliani. um there was like just other stuff. Like they had footage with Mike Pence and all these other people in it, but they had to cut some of it. Like the first Borat movie, they had like 400 hours of footage that didn't even make it. Like there were bits in the trailer that weren't in the film. Like he was part of a Confederate reenactment and that didn't make it into the movie. Um but yeah. So trivia about the movie. I know Kazakhstan initially really didn't like the movie because obviously it like appears to portray Kazakh people as like Borat, and if
Mm-hmm.
people don't know any Kazakh people and they see Borat and they see the mockumentary style, they're going to make assumptions. And there were times when like I think at one of the Olympics the Borat Kazakhstan national anthem was played when one of the Kazakh athletes won instead of the actual Kazakh anthem.
Oh
So that was
no.
like a whole thing. Um and just like other faux pas based around this movie. But then recently the Kazakh country, I think they've kind of switched their relationship, or they're kind of changing their relationship a bit. I know the tourism um agencies started using like the very nice or like Kazakhstan very nice as like their slogan to like
Mm-hmm.
encourage people to come over. So that's them like leveraging like, well, everyone knows Borat and they know this, so like maybe we could start like using it. Like it says here in 2012, like the foreign minister attributed a great rise in tourism to his country, with visas issued rising 10 times to the film. So he's grateful to Borat for at least like letting people know Kazakhstan exists. Um so there's like different opinions about it, which I can understand. So there's a lot of people that are like, this movie is really anti-American, but we could see why people would view it as anti-Semitic or anti-Romanian or anti-Kazakh, and some people were like boycotting the new one. But I could understand why it would be a complicated.
The new one has an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Hmm. The original one, let me see. I don't
Yuck.
know. I know it had a pretty good reception. 91%. So,
I
yeah,
hear that Borat is basically a contender for the Oscars. Did you hear that?
I know the first Borat, it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, I think. Yeah. So, there's...
But considering there really haven't been a lot of movies in 2020, I think we can forgive the Oscars this one time.
Yeah. I remember there was a news story that someone was like, Borat did or like Sacha Baron Cohen did a prank. Like he was seen in California doing a prank, but they thought it was for his show What is America. They didn't realize it was for Borat too. Like I remember that coming out earlier. But a lot of people who were filmed, especially the ones saying not great things, got upset at the movie. But it's like maybe you should change your shitty opinions. Yeah. And then let me see. There's just like a couple other like he got like the police were called on him like 90 something times. Like the FBI had like that thing on him. A lot of people were suing him. But they would like sue him, but then also be like, also I like the movie. Can you sign a poster for my son?
We're so dumb.
Yeah. There was some, like, the village that he originally filmed in, they sued because they were like, he only paid us, like, £3 to be in this movie. So they were, like, suing for, like, more money, which makes sense. So, yeah. A lot of, I don't know if interesting is the right word, but stuff around that. And then the movie was very clearly banned in like the entire Arab world except for Lebanon and UAE for a while. But yeah, that's the movie.
I hate it.
Sorry, I'll try to find a better movie next time.
0 out of 5 stars. 0.
Would not watch.
Would not recommend to anyone. How dare you bring this trash movie into my house? Shrug.
I view it as social commentary veiled in a lot of offensive humor. I would rate it... I feel like I would rate it a 3 out of 5 just because it was different and it is still pretty revealing. And honestly should have been like an omen of what was to come in 14 years, you know? Like, yeah. You know, and it's shocking, especially as an American, to watch and realize that people still think like this, like earnestly think like this, you know, because that's like the whole conceit of the movie is that these are authentic people who don't like they've agreed to being filmed, but they don't know what's happening or they don't realize it's like a movie and not a documentary, and they still feel comfortable enough to say this on camera, right? So. And like the extent of what they will believe, right? Like they truly believed that he genuinely thought these things, right? And their biases just, like he played off of their biases and they didn't question it like once. You know, they just were like, okay, yeah, this guy's saying this stuff, there's nothing wrong about it. I'm not going to call him out even if I don't agree with it. Or I agree with what he's saying and I'm going to go along with it, right? So that it's just very revealing. And I think that stuff is interesting and brings merit, even though the humor is totally offensive.
And outdated.
Yeah, and outdated. So I'm curious to see what the second one is like. I do want to watch it. But yeah.
Well, it's on Amazon Prime. Be my guest.
Yep, I know. That'll probably
Don't tell me anything about it. Don't care. Don't want to know.
The next episode, Borat 2.
No, I'm going to fight you. I'm going to fight you in this room. I'm going to fly to New York so I can fight you. And so when you shoot your music video, you got a big old black eye.
Oh, that would be so punk rock, though.
I know. I was just thinking you're going to look... I was just helping you out. How dare you?
How dare I? I mean, it was either gonna be this or like Barbie Princess and the Pauper. So
You know what? Yeah, let's never do Barbie Prince and the Pauper, please. Please.
okay, it's just
No
all the good
Barbie
movies I've
movies.
seen. You've also seen,
What are you talking about?
and then you've seen more good movies than I have. So,
It's because I'm amazing and you suck.
uh
And sorry.
huh. All right. Well, thanks for listening
Oh
to
yeah.
this episode of We Don't Watch Movies. Let me know if you're like me and can tolerate these sorts of cringe humor, observational satire commentary movies, or if you're like Monze and have no tolerance for them and think they're stupid.
Then you scream at Corinne.
Yeah.
Do it.
You can either scream at me because you agree with me or scream at me because you disagree with me, but there's
Because
going to
you
be screaming.
agree with me. Because I'm 100% right all the time, and Corinne is almost always wrong.
You know, someone basically told me that in a Facebook comment argument, but
What?
about
Who are they? I'm gonna fight them.
About politics. Oh, it was great.
Oh my god, people are stupid.
I'll tell you after. Yeah. But yeah, I guess we should start saying give this video a thumbs up, like, comment, and subscribe.
Tell your friends.
Smash a button somewhere.
Smash any button. We don't care.
Keyboard smash. Yeah, and we'll see you guys next time. And of course, if you have any recommendations of movies you think we haven't seen that you want us to talk about, let us know down below. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.